It's perfect. It sure is. Right, right. Well, I really thank you for being the keynote on this. It's kind of exciting for me to have somebody that like you that would participate in something like this. So I appreciate it. All right. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
And so, Sean, as you've said, we face incredible challenges, moral dilemmas, and they weigh on me very deeply. And so, thank you for giving us an opportunity to come together to talk about this from a spiritual place of you know, the importance of our work and how do we get through this day by day, knowing that these decisions really affect the lives in so many ways of us, our families, our children, our teachers, and all of the people that we all touch on a day-to-day basis.
So, Rabbi, you touched on one big thing that has always been a huge weight on my shoulders from the moment I got involved as a parent in my childcare program was the fact that our teachers are not paid the way they should, and they live paycheck to paycheck, and it's been something we've been trying to deal with for a long time. And so that was always kind of this moral burden on my shoulders as to how to keep pushing that up. At the same time, doing it in a way that I can support with my business and make sure I can have parents who will pay that.
Right.
And then we got into COVID and it just blew the whole thing up. And so now I feel like almost every day I'm making a moral choice. And these moral choices are not a right or wrong choice. They're not, do you do the right thing or the wrong thing? That would be easy. They're, do you do the 60% right thing and the 40% wrong thing? Like these choices eat on you, and they build up over time, and they wear you down. And I've gotten to the point where I'm having a hard time making more choices. I'm having a hard time sticking in there and feeling like I can, even though I know my craft, I know my people, I know I've been studying the science, I've been reading everything I can read. It's just so hard to keep making those choices day after day after day. So as a spiritual leader, do you have any input on that or anything that you could help me with? I know you don't have the answer, but
Sure.
Some support.
So one of the things that some very wise teachers have been working to help me with is the idea of not getting stuck in those weeds of those individual decisions, because there are so many that we have to make. You know, as you and I talked about earlier, from the, are we going to make the cutoff 100.0 or 100.4? Are we going to have kids exclude for 48 hours or 72 hours? Are we going to have a policy that, you know, tells teachers what they can do in their off time, or is that beyond the scope of their work agreement with us? And every day there's another decision. Are we using bleach, or are we using a spray? Are we using soap and water, or are we using something else? How are we deciding? Even are we pulling rugs out of the classroom or not? We can get really stuck in those really important details, trying to keep everybody safe and also profitable, and lose sight of the why that we're doing our work and the bigger picture. And one of the things that's really helped me is the framing of our values, and that why of what we're doing really keeps me going. Part of the reason that we feel such a burden is that, as everyone on this call knows, we have been set up as a field to fail from the beginning, right? We don't get public tax dollars. We don't get any support. Parents don't get subsidies. We're expected to provide 55 hours or more of childcare just based on tuition alone. Families can't afford it. We can't afford to pay our staff and our bills. And this situation has only just sort of shined a light and exacerbated what we already knew was the case. And the injustice of it, we're losing childcare jobs, most of which are women and women of color losing those jobs. If we don't open up our centers, it's women and women of color who are most going to be affected by not being able to go back to work or having to reduce their hours or their long-term earning prospects in the field. It's a no-win situation. And we play such a critical role in supporting everybody being able to function well, having children who are emotionally developed in a good way. And so going back to those whys are, for me, what really helps me sort of try to stay out of the weeds and focus. And for each one of those questions that comes up every day, it used to be way back in the day that I would go to the NACI code of ethics. Like, how do I use that code of ethics as the guide under which I'm making these decisions? And I am in a Jewish institution that has a set of Jewish values that I put word to a number of weeks ago, and that are really helping for me and my staff to guide us. And I'd like to share them with everybody, and I'll put them in the chat box as well. But there are 5 values that I feel like are really guiding our work right now. And those values are the following. There is Masa, which means journey, Brit, which means covenant, Tselem Elohim, which is divine image, Hitorah Rut, which is awakening, and Tikkun Olam, which is repairing the world. And so this is how I reflected on those 5 values. Our journey, Masa, families and staff will recognize that we are on an unfolding journey together. We will approach our reopening and new ways of being together with awe and wonder, encouraging staff, students, and families to marvel in our flexibility, creativity, capacity for change, resilience, and vision of the future. My ongoing message for my staff is this is uncharted territory, and any resistance to change that they may have had or our parents may have had, it is only going to impede our ability to meet everybody's needs. We need to go into this work knowing that things are different and that we all have the ability to be resilient and to accept change. And we need to be that positive model for our children and families, that they can do this, that their children can do this, that we can do this, and we can do it in a way that's safe. Because if we don't have that faith in our children and in our families, they will not have that faith in themselves. So that's our first value, is that we are on a journey together. The second is that we have a holy brit, a covenant with each other. We are in a sacred relationship with each other. It's our obligation and our desire to keep each other safe, and we'll be mindful and supportive of the emotional and physical health needs of our children, staff, and families. We seek to ensure that each member of our community has the ability to care for themselves and their family members appropriately and fully. We commit to providing a developmentally appropriate early childhood program that continues to meet the needs of our students. Our families commit to supporting our effort through compliance with health and attendance policies and appreciation for our holy work. So right there, that's the underpinning of all of our work. We are in a sacred relationship. We do sacred, holy work, meeting the needs of children, growing up a generation that is emotionally and physically safe and healthy and committed to a just world. That is our job. That is our commitment, and families support us by complying, by their attention, by their willingness to accept that it's not always going to be easy, but that we're in this together. Our third value is Tselem Elohim. We see the divine in each and every member of our community and value each person's unique contribution. We will do all we can to keep each other safe and allow each person to bring the best of themselves to our work, as we are all blessed by each other's divine gifts. For me, this is super important. Before coronavirus, before shutdown, we are a Reggio-inspired school, and a big part of our philosophy is that being an emergent curriculum program, we really expect and take the unique interests and passions of each individual in our program and lift that up to build our curriculum. But today, that valuing of each individual person has to say that we don't expect anyone to sacrifice themselves or their families for the sake of the larger whole. Every person is a unique contributor to our community, and we value each and every person. So we are committed to keeping everyone safe and still finding ways for everyone to bring their unique selves, even within a further constrained environment than we are used to having. Our fourth value is Hitora Root, awakening or gratitude. We will view each day as a special gift. We will cultivate a sense of gratitude and appreciation in ourselves and our students. We will focus on the wonder of what is, not the loss of what was or the question of what is to come. And this is a really hard one. We are all mourning for what was normal, for the way life was when it was simpler before coronavirus. And we have no idea what this school year is going to bring for us. How many times we're going to close? Is our business going to make it? How many staff are we going to have to lay off? Is there going to be illness or, God forbid, even death and loss in our community? And going back to that Masa, that journey we're on, seeing every single day that we get to be together, that we get to do our sacred work, is a blessing for us and for our children. And really holding on to that notion of daily gratitude and appreciating each day for what it is going to be so central to our work. If we focus in the loss, if we focus in what was, then we fall into that trap of we're not able to move forward. And if we focus on the fear of what will be, we may become paralyzed. And so we really just need to focus on this gift of each day. And how can we make each day the best it can be? And then finally, for me, I find Tikkun Olam, repair of the world, to be an incredibly important piece. Right now, we are feeling so out of control. We can't control what's safe. We can't control who we can be with. We can't control if we work or we don't work. There's so much that we have lost. But the one thing we can do is notice the inequality around us and do what we can in our individual and communal lives to help them. So we can ask, who is sick? Who is lacking sustenance? Who is needing our attention and companionship? We can commit to using our time together to address the needs in the larger community that we're a part of. We know the work is great, but we all can do our small part to make it a little bit better. And so being able to use the control that we have, the power that we have to help others in need, we know, science tells us that spiritual uplift benefits us and it benefits those who we help. And so those are the 5 values that I really see shaping our work and our lives day to day right now. And I try to stay up there. The work is huge. And as I said, the sort of spotlight on the injustices around us have become all the more clear as those who make the least amount of money in childcare, in grocery stores, sanitation workers, everyone around, those who make the least are asked to sacrifice the most to support those who have white collar jobs, who get paid more. And so just figuring out how can we do our best to recognize and value each and every person who is in our community and lift them up. that to me is what keeps me going.
Rabbi, that is so helpful. I mean, it is really nice to have that framework. That framework definitely. The other thing, it's so validating because I've been wrestling with these ideas for my entire time that I've been doing what I've been doing, and yet I've never necessarily felt that other people thought the same way that I did. And the way that you just explained it is exactly the way that I've always felt about it. I mean, these are you've put it in ways that I could never put it, and in so much more of an eloquent, more structured way. But it uplifts everything that I've been doing for the last 13 years. It definitely makes me feel validated that I've been pushing on a social justice course. But now we have these decisions that are just so hard, and they just weigh and weigh and weigh because we don't know what the right decision is. We don't know whether the right decision is to just close and not open until next year, or whether to help families and help kids, or get them into some type of routine. Is it if coronavirus transmits on a 10-to-1 basis, you don't want to have kids in a confined environment. If it doesn't, and it's much more like what we're seeing, it does seem like maybe we do want to have kids in their normal kind of groups, but then we got to worry about our staff, and we have to decide, our staff safe, and can we keep them safe, and are we doing all the right things? And so I think that as all these things keep adding up and adding up and adding up, we just want to know, are we doing the right things? Are we, or how do we, we can't always know if we're doing the right things because these things keep changing.
Yeah.
So how do we reassure ourselves? What do you think? What do you think about that? How do we reassure ourselves?
That is a tough question. I mean, you said it best. Sometimes you're making a decision that's 60% right and 40% wrong, and that's the best you've got. Or you're making a decision today based on the information you have today, and tomorrow maybe you'll have different information and you would have made a different decision with that new information. I think as long as your decision is grounded in the values and you're coming from that place of wanting to do what's best for those in your care, then that's all that we can ask of ourselves. And we can sleep soundly knowing that we aren't making those decisions just for the finances and writing off the lives of our teachers. We are caring about the grandparents that our children live with, or the siblings who may have underlying health concerns that these children are going home to. And so it's hard, and we have to give ourselves permission to say we're doing the best we can. We're taking in all the information we have, and ultimately I'm making a decision now based on what I know. And very little about what we do is set in stone, right? It's kind of like getting a haircut. You hate your haircut, your hair will grow out. If you make a decision today and realize tomorrow or next week it was the wrong one, you can change your mind. You can reclose. You can choose to open. All of us pray every day. I assume that our decisions will not cause anybody to get ill or, God forbid, to die. We're doing everything we can to make the decisions that will keep people safe. But there's no guarantees, and we can just give ourselves permission to do the best we can.
So you're saying if you start from a position of goodness, of trying to do the best for your people, for your kids, for your parents, I think that's the hardest thing for me sometimes, is that they're in conflict. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what's best for the kids is that they're back in our program. What's best for the teachers is that they're home getting paid to stay home.
Yep.
What's best for the parents is that their lives have a sense of order, and those things aren't always in alignment. And so where do you make those give and takes? And so I feel like I made the right give and takes with those, and then we opened on June 1st, and my teachers have accepted the fact that this is a long-term thing, and if we're going to have, we talk about the fact, if the school goes away, I'm happy to close down the school and to say this is no longer a moral endeavor. We will close down the school. We're a nonprofit. I don't own it. I mean, it's not. So I'm happy to close it down, but without the school, there's no one to take care of you. So then you don't get a paycheck, and so we've been having open conversations about that to say, well, yeah, no, we want the school to be here. So let's make sure the school stays here. And then with the parents and the kids, I've been getting so many emails about the kids just not doing well at home. I mean, the fact that the parents have got to work. They've got to do what they normally do, which means they don't have the time to take care of the kids. They don't have and so these kids are not in the same position. So morally, I feel like we are doing the right thing by reopening, by bringing the kids to a place where they can be where they need to be, by supporting the parents in the way that they need to be, by, and then if the teachers, we're supporting them with PPE and trying to make sure that they feel safe and they feel, but at the same time, it's just so many moral decisions that I don't feel like I'm necessarily equipped to make. I don't feel like I'm, I don't want to be in this position all the time to have to make these decisions. And so, what do you think about that? Or do you think that's the right line of thinking? Do you think we need to change our thinking? Do you think we need to do things differently? What do you think?
I'll respond in just a second. Sherry, I can see that you're anxious to jump in here. I'm happy to listen.
I think also an important part of the equation that weighs on us, if we're, especially in not-for-profits, but on everybody, is what's best for the institution. And if we open, which we open June 15th, and we are running at a deficit, and then I feel guilty about my institution because my institution actually doesn't really have any money either. And so that's just another big part of the equation that weighs on me, is what's good for the institution as well as the children and the parents and the teachers. And
so hold on, Sherry, are you another one of our rabbi? No, I thought, I'm sorry.
No, I know Sarah. I do know Sarah, but I am in no way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Although my daughter's in rabbinical school, does that count?
Oh, there you go. That's great. So, and what's your program, Sherry?
I'm in a synagogue.
Okay.
So she's also in Rockville.
Okay. So what do you think?
Sean, I think that you really hit the nail on the head in terms of the struggles that we're under. We have all these vectors. We've got, as Sherry said, the institutional vector of bring in the money, bring in the income, keep the program going. The children who need structure, who at this age, they don't learn online, right? We can entertain them for a little while. We can distract them so the parents can get some work done. We can maintain some relationship with them, which is so important, but they're not gonna thrive in an online environment. That's not what a 2-year-old or 3-year-old or 4-year-old should be doing. And we know that. We're getting these emails just like you are, that the children are not doing all right. And then we've got the parents who, on the one hand, don't want to get sick. On the other hand, they, even if they weren't working, their children still would need more structure and socialization and opportunity. That's part of why we exist. And then, of course, our teachers, who we want to keep safe. And to me, it's a little bit like having a scale, and you put a little rock on this side for, okay, we're gonna we're gonna meet the children's needs, and we're gonna help the parents be able to go back to work, and we're gonna keep our teachers paid, give them a paycheck so they can keep the lights on and the roof over their head. And on this side, we're gonna keep everyone safe, and we're not gonna open because we don't know how to do that in a way that is fair and equitable. And again, is the science isn't there yet to make sure that we know that we're doing the right thing. And for me, it really comes down to sort of that 60-40. Where does that scale land? And then the aspect of choice that, I wish we had courageous leadership in our country. If we had courageous leadership, we would be in a different situation, I believe, where folks could make the decision that was best for them and for their family without risking the roof over their head, the electricity, the food on their table, the medicine that they need for their children. Those are untenable options, right? Come back to work and risk bringing home coronavirus, or don't come back to work and not be able to afford your healthcare, your food. And so part of my decision-making in when do we open and do we open was to talk to my staff and say, if we open in July, who's in? If we open in September, who's in? If we can't open till January because we feel like that's safest, who's still in? Who's not able to wait? And taking that feedback from them of, I need a job, or this is my passion, I miss these children so much. I trust that you're going to do what you can to keep us safe. I'm committed to following the protocol, that I want to be there. And then balancing all of that feedback and those needs. So that's how I sort of weigh it. I get that input, and I try to be really honest. Again, with my staff and with my families, that we're on this Masada's journey together. And so everybody's point of view needs to be taken into account, everybody's needs. Like you, I came from a different career before I came into this. And I have always been motivated throughout my work by looking at what I do through a justice lens. And I really believe that working with young children is a way that we improve the world. We are raising up a generation to be kind and caring and open and giving and loving, and I can't imagine not continuing this holy work. And so I need to find a way to do it in a way that meets their needs and also meets the needs of my staff as best as I can. And it's
that's a great point for me to jump off on, to say, all right, I feel the exact same way that you do with this social justice, like, motivation that just drives me. When do you have to say, I gotta meet my own needs versus my social justice endeavors? Because I feel like a lot of us are getting to that point where we have to make a decision as to, this isn't good for me. This is not something I can do long term. This is killing me. Whether it's because it's economically, whether it's because it's emotionally, whether it's, how do you kind of wrestle with those decisions when you're a social justice crusader? When do you?
That's hard. Burnout in the social justice field is up here. I mean, really across issue, right? People who are motivated by wanting to make the world better feel that passion, and often don't prioritize themselves to the point of sacrificing themselves. And I don't think that's not good for anybody. When I was in school for social work, my professor used to say, social work starts at home. You know, you can't take care of anybody else if you don't take care of yourself first. You have to actually be able to be there. A lot of people use the airplane analogy of put your own mask on first before you put on someone else's. And I think it's really apt. If you're passed out on an airplane, to go a little bit too far with that analogy, if you're burnt out, if you can't anymore, then you aren't going to be able to be there for everyone else. And it's not fair of anyone to expect you to sacrifice yourself financially, emotionally, or otherwise. You know, for me, this becomes very personal in the age of coronavirus. I have a child with a health condition that makes her at high risk of complications. I live with someone undergoing cancer treatment at the moment, a senior. I couldn't go back to work if I were a classroom teacher right now. I just wouldn't feel safe doing that. And that puts me at risk economically, but I would have to make that choice for me. And I'm in a privileged position because going back, in order to keep from, you know, violating those classroom cohorts, I'm going to mostly sit in an office by myself all day. You know, I'm going to mostly be able to stay 6 feet away from children and teachers. That's not the case for everybody. I can afford to live on a reduced paycheck, which is what I'm being offered right now, because that's the best my institution can do in the current situation with reduced numbers, reduced ratios, increased cost. But not everybody's in that situation. And I don't think that anybody should feel guilty for saying they need to take care of themselves first. Doesn't do anybody any good to have us burnt out. And going back, looking at it through a justice lens, to my statement earlier that we were already put in an untenable situation. You know, childcare only exists in this country on the backs of low wage workers, right? We expect people to work for at best minimum wage for very long hours a week with very little benefits, if any, so that other people can go to work. And if all of us say enough, there has to be a systemic fix. Each one of us individually can't fix that. As a sector, as a whole, we need to be standing up for ourselves and saying, this is not tenable. We deserve to be able to make a living. We deserve to be able to stay healthy. We want to be able to serve our children and families. This doesn't work for anybody, and we need systemic change. And it's not fair to put it on any one individual business owner to say either you're a failure or you're not caring enough about your families or your children that you're going out of business or not opening up. It's a much larger picture than that. There's a context in which businesses are failing and owners are not being able to earn a living or pay teachers living wages. And that context matters.
Well, I think that's a great point, is that individual operators of their business, whether you're an owner or whether you're a director, whatever position you have that are running these childcare businesses, you should not feel like a failure because it's not working.
Yes.
It is not your fault. That we have a system that is not set up to succeed.
Yes.
And that system was not set up to succeed before COVID. And with COVID, it's just been accentuated.
Yes.
And so I was really moved by a tweet I saw this week by a childcare provider from Virginia, where she was saying, you know, we shouldn't be judged by the fact as to whether our programs are open or closed or whether they succeed or fail, because this isn't our fault. And it absolutely isn't. I mean, we are so much victims of our own circumstance. It's just, if you were in this circumstance, you might be able to succeed. If you were in a school building, you are in a bad spot right now. You could be the best, the smartest person in the world. You're in a school building, you can't operate. So it's not your fault. And same thing if you're in a community building. You might be in a community building, but if only 10% of your parents are coming back, you can't succeed with and keep your people employed. And so it's a really hard situation for all of us. And I think it's best that some of the best advice that I've been seeing from people has just been to take your ability to be compassionate and blow it up 1,000 times. Just be as compassionate as you can be to all people for everything that they're dealing with right now. I do that with my parents. I do that with my teachers. I do that with everyone, just to say, like, all right, you don't want to come into work? I'm compassionate. I understand. Don't come into work. If you don't want to come back, bring your kid back to school, I'm compassionate. I understand. I completely understand.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get on us because you really need us to be open till 6 and we're only open till 5, I'm very compassionate about that. I understand what you need. I mean, I can't always do what you want me to do, but I can at least be compassionate about it to understand that we're all hurting. We're all just trying to figure our way through this really, really difficult situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Sherry is the one who taught me the most about really giving everyone that extra benefit, really meeting them where they are, and treating everyone with that kind of compassion. And it's as I can't remember if I said that here or talking to you earlier, Sean, but there's literally nothing that's not stressful right now. You know, going to the grocery store is stressful. Thinking about school is stressful. Even going for a walk in the neighborhood right now is stressful. We don't have a lot of control, and people deal with stress in different ways. And some of them lash out or get angry. Some get tired and shut down. And everyone just needs that compassion, as you talked about, because we're all going through it in every possible way. And even more so parents of young children who are probably at their wits' end trying to figure out how to meet their needs.
Right.
And it's untenable, and it's really hard. So thank you for that reminder.
So let me, if anyone would like to take themselves off mute and add any comments, we would welcome anybody that wants to talk. I saw some things in the chat, but
Hi, Sean.
hi, Flora.
I'm contemplating opening, and I know I contemplated opening back in maybe June or and I kind of put out feelers for my staff, and I didn't think anybody was coming back, and so I thought this is not the right time, and I just shut everything back down again. So we're getting ready now to reopen, and I've just put out information for my staff. Let me know by tomorrow, are you in for reopening in August? And I think that I really want to keep telling myself to have compassion, like you were talking about, and to really think about how we might not need everybody back. Because as everybody is saying, the enrollment is so low at this time, right, that and I probably need to let them know, no pressure if you don't want to come back now. We probably won't need everybody. And I'm also interviewing some new, young, healthy people who are college interns looking for internships for the fall, and they may be available. So I think that talking about having compassion for people who are in situations that they don't have any control over and they're very worried is really good advice. I really appreciate that perspective. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think you'll find that if you reopen, there is a healing process that goes on with that. Is that your staff comes together and they figure out how to make it work. And those who don't want to come back, I think it's great if you can allow them not to come back if they don't want to come back, and only make those who want to come back to come back. I mean, it really, but then once you do, you get to understand what it's like, and the fact that this is not a 2-week situation. It's not a 1-month situation. It's a year or longer situation. It starts to help. It really does start to help. And if you can support your people with that type of attitude from management, that I'm here to support you no matter what you decide to do, and you have to be reasonable. Doesn't mean you can pay people for, full time for a year. But it does mean I can be flexible. It means I can do some things that can help make things work out. I think it helps.
I think you're right.
Anyone else have any other things they would like to add, share, ask a question about?
One thing I would say though is just knowing that we're all in this together, to me, is very helpful. To know I'm not the only director struggling with all these issues, that all the directors in Maryland and the country are struggling together. What do they say? There's comfort in numbers, or whatever the saying is. But it really does help to know, and just to hear it again, even though you know it, psychologically, but just to hear, yeah, it's hard and there's no right answer and we're all in it together. I find that useful.
Completely agree with you. That is absolutely, that's what motivated this whole thing, actually, is the fact that we wanted to know that we're in it together. I mean, I maybe was feeling a little detached and just wanted to know that and to see some other people that felt that way like I do. And it's really hard though to just keep making these decisions and to feel like, am I making the right decisions? I don't know if I'm making the right. I mean, I think I'm making the right decisions. They seem to be the right decisions, but all of us have all these different decisions to make, and so Rabbi Mayton, what do you think? How do you think we're heading with all this?
Ooh, in my great big crystal ball.
Yes. You have all the answers. That's right?
Yeah, that for sure has never been true. I agree. Just feeling like we're in it together, supporting each other, doing what's best. Reading articles, we're going to have a vaccine maybe next year, maybe the end of next year. We're in this for the long haul, and we're only going to be able to get through it with community. And so, Sean, I really appreciate that you reached out and wanted to have this conversation. And, I think it may be an ongoing conversation of how do we lift each other up. We're each going to have our moments where we feel like, okay, I'm done. I can't make any more decisions, or it's just too hard, or the weight of the virus is pulling me down, or the economics, or just the weight of everything being on my shoulders as the director or the owner. And we've got to be there for each other and support each other, because the sector is needed, and we're needed. We're important. And we need to work together to keep each other going, but also to figure out how to make sure that other people outside of our sector realize how important we are and want to support us as well.
Well
so
said.
Let me ask you a question. Oh, go ahead, Flora.
No, I just said well said. I mean,
Oh.
I'm so glad that I am not the only one that feels those feelings and have those moments of so much doubt that I wonder, why am I still fighting the fight, And so it feels really validating to hear that I am not the only one that feels the crushing weight of making decisions. It's like some days I just don't want to make one more decision. Don't ask me anything.
That's why you get this. If in doubt, you resort to the magic 8 ball.
Jana,
Yes,
that's great. That's great, Jana.
Oh my God.
We should see if we can send one of those to every single person in the Facebook group.
This is a lot of years old, but if in doubt, you just ask it and it'll tell you 60% right.
I'm afraid to open up emails.
Your parents and your staff will tell you when you make the wrong decision.
They sure will.
Oh, that's true. But they're not always right.
No, they're never, because
That's the
like you
problem.
talked about compassion, And the
Right.
hardest part for me is, yes, I understand they need care. I understand they need me to be open to 6 o'clock or open at 6 a.m. and I can't afford it.
Right.
But they don't have compassion for me, who's running at 65% payroll and trying to figure out what August is going to look like when all the federal relief runs out.
Yeah,
So
Dana,
that's your
Dana,
fault.
that's like I got an email today from a mom that said, when are you going to go back to 6:30 p.m. closing instead of me picking
Ever.
up at 5? And I'm thinking like, when there's a vaccine, like when COVID's
Right.
gone, like what really, like, what do you want me to say to that? Because she was like, I've got some appointments coming up in August, and I need. And I'm thinking,
You know,
I hate to be not helpful, but at the same time, you seem like you're out of touch with reality.
a lot of my family's commute, so I'm on the Eastern Shore, and we used to open at 6 a.m. I financially cannot afford to
Right.
keep cohorts from 6 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. I
Right.
can't afford it. As it is, from 6:30 to 7, the 2 teachers, I usually have 2 classrooms open. So one of the classrooms is the school agers, and the other classroom, whichever group has the most kids, sits in my office with toys. And that's their classroom until the 7 o'clock person comes in, because
Wow.
I can't afford to do anything more than that.
Right.
And I sanitize those toys, and whoever's
And that's
next.
not really sustainable on you. I mean, you're really
No.
going above and beyond to try to make that work.
And then I'm hearing in our group, like, I'm trying to keep my cohorts, sanitize the bathroom. My teachers are cleaning the playground,
Right.
like after each use,
Right.
because they told me that we may not close the entire building if we get COVID again,
Right.
because we're doing these things. But somebody in the group today just posted that they didn't let her close just the cohort in Anne Arundel County.
All right. I saw that.
And
I
I'm
saw
like
that.
sitting there and I'm like,
And
well,
that's not even direct contact. That's indirect contact. They're closing the school down.
Right.
that was like 7 separations of Kevin Bacon.
Right.
I'm like,
Right. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, it is, again, that's why it gets so hard. It's how do we make these decisions we're trying to do our best to keep the kids separate. We're trying to do our best to if we're going to have a case in our program, it's going to be 1 case or 2 cases, not 4 cases or 8 cases. And if it's 4 cases or 8 cases, let's share why that was 4 cases or 8 cases so that we know it was because of this or it was because of that. And then we can all try to restrict whatever that issue is, and we can try to not have it that way. And so, unfortunately, that's all happening with us, like in our informal groups, and not with our governments, not with our health departments, not with our they are not tracking what we're doing. They're not tracking what the positives and minuses are. They're not giving us information at all. So everything I know is coming
But
from
I think in an
people.
article I read, those people don't have childcare, so they're not at work doing the data.
Well,
what I
that's
think
true.
That's all about.
That's
Well-
true. You're right. Those with childcare needs are home.
Well,
Go ahead, Dana.
The health department is not giving out that information because of HIPAA. So that's what we've been told. Is they're not giving out the information because it's private.
Which is
because
not
it's-
true.
Which is
Because
not
you don't
true.
need-
It should be.
I don't
we're not
need to
naming
know
names.
the fact that it was your childcare center or my childcare center that had an issue
Correct.
to know the fact that a childcare center had an issue and it had to do with X or it had to do with Y or it had to do with 1 kid or 2 kids or 1
but they don't
teacher.
ask.
Right.
They don't ask.
That's
My
exactly
assistant
right.
director and I have been together for 18 years.
Right.
And we figured out, we tracked exactly how it got into the building.
You did the contact tracing.
We did it 100%.
Right.
Because we also believe that we had a toddler that probably had it that we blew off to teething for almost 3 weeks, maybe
Right.
4 weeks.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And then all of a sudden when we got him back, when we reopened on June 1st, his gums are white and fleshy and like just big meaty gooiness.
Right.
They were never that way. He was just fussy and whining. And my assistant director, I'm going to tell you, I had it. but we suspect that we were fighting it, and it was that one last straw that pushed us over the edge along with the stress. But nobody's asking those things.
Right.
Nobody's asking how.
And we don't need
like,
to know it was your center.
Right.
We just
Jen
need to
Neisler said the
know.
reason they're not giving out the information is because it's all self-report, so the numbers aren't accurate.
Right.
So, you know,
Well,
she said, we know
here-
that there was coronavirus in some center and
Well, here's
Sonoma
another
County,
thing.
but they never told us, so the numbers aren't
But I-
accurate. We're not going to give information.
Right.
I think I was counted in 2 counties. I live in Anne Arundel County. My business is in Queen Anne's County. I had 2 health departments calling me for 6 weeks. So I don't know, like that's a whole nother gist, because one health department said, don't close. The other one's like, oh yeah, you gotta close.
And we've been seeing that too with the different health departments, or even the different people in the health department
Correct.
have a different. It is very frustrating because, again, and it just brings us back to that kind of moral, spiritual thing. Like, what are we doing? We
Well,
want to do the right thing.
but we
And if they
can't do
tell
the
us
right
we
thing,
should
Sean.
close, we want to close.
But we
But if they
can't, because
tell
our
us-
guidance is skewed. Think about
Right.
the guidance we get.
Right.
Our guidance that comes out are shoulda, woulda, couldas.
Right.
And I spent the 6 weeks we were closed reading everything. I wrote a 6-page novella on how we were going to open and best practices.
Right.
Ridiculousness. I hate writing. And, but
But
then
you did a
now
good job. I
It,
read
was,
it. It
it
was
came
good.
out good. I was happy with it, you know, but the problem is that I then go on to these listening sessions and I'm like, wait, I got to take my carpets out? What do you mean? I got to wear a smock? What do you mean? I don't understand. Like, my mind's blown, and I know I didn't listen this week and I caught only part of the week before. And I'm like, every time she comes on, I want to throw up, and there's no compassion for me or us as owners and directors. I'm like,
And now you know
Well-
why school system won't go back in session is because they don't have the resources or the ability to do what's best for kids.
Yeah,
taught
I mean,
public
we
school.
we can adapt on a dime.
Yes.
You could do
Yes.
something different tomorrow
Yes.
that you did yesterday.
Yes.
You know, school system cannot
They
do it
cannot.
that way. So
taught
I
public-
definitely feel for them in that way.
Yes.
At the same time, you know, it is something we're dealing with, because then that makes us have to make these decisions on a daily
Right.
basis. What's best? If a week ago I felt pretty confident about my health department, that if I called them and I said something to them, that they would give me good advice. And
Now not so
this
much.
week I don't feel that way. Like, what do I do? Because I don't want to close my center for 2 weeks just because I get somebody that's not very well informed just in the health department that just says, yeah, just close for 2 weeks. Like, do you understand what that means? Do you understand what that means for the parents? Do you understand what that means for
They
the
don't.
kids? Do you understand what that means? And are you going to cover our losses? Are you going to
No.
let us stay in business? You know, I mean,
That's the other thing, though, is that the public schools are getting federal, state, and local funds, and we're getting no funds from anywhere.
that's right.
And we have to operate to try to break even without any support whatsoever.
That's right.
And they cut the subsidy budget. Instead of going to 43%, they're not going to 43% this year. So
Yeah, they
they've,
sent out that
they've
letter.
I know
broken
you
that,
mean
they broke
60.
that
We're
promise.
supposed to go to 60.
60. Yeah.
60, yes.
Flora,
and
talk about that. Flora, talk about what you know about that.
So when we got the letter from MSDE late after the listening session was over, I was on Facebook and like reporting what the heck, you know, and then somebody said, no, the comptroller said this isn't going to happen. So I went to the comptroller's Facebook page and I said, you know, why did MSDE send out this letter about CCS being cut? And I got a response back immediately saying they're going to have to retract that letter and send out a correction that Peter Francho and the treasurer did not vote with the governor to do the cuts. And so the cuts are not going to happen. So I reported that back on Facebook at the director's Facebook page of Maryland. And then I just today, I opened up email, haven't been on email because my husband's birthday was yesterday. and saw there's a letter from Jen Nizer, an email saying, well, Flora, because of what you wrote on the Facebook page, attached is the corrected letters from MSDE. So there's 2 corrected letters, but the corrected letters don't correct what the comptroller said, is everything's restored. The corrected letter I got from Jen Nizer today, or she sent out after the other one, says that they're putting off any increase until further notice when they can figure it out. And they're still cutting out paying on based on enrollment and not attendance. So really nothing is changing. July 20th, we get the rug pulled out from under us. We're not going to get our CCS money, even if the kids are not attending or even if we're closed, which has helped been the biggest support for so many programs, whether they're open, whether they're closed. This is helping to keep the lights on. And now they're pulling that away from us. And they are really trying not to increase July 1st. I said I thought it was a law that got passed. They had to be by up to 60th percentile by July 1st. So the corrective letter from MSDE is not matching what the comptroller said. But the comptroller did say he was pretty sure the heroes were the child care providers. That was really nice to hear that from him. Or his
Yeah,
people.
I think that's probably going to be a good thing that powers us through to the next election, is the fact that Peter Francho has definitely latched on to the child care provider issue, and he is going to be running for governor. And so that is a great thing, because our issues are now prominent in the fact that someone who is thinking about running for governor, these are things he wants to talk about, which is not typical. We do not normally get the gubernatorial people talking about childcare in a way like this. So
Sean, you know what's really funny? Right before the shutdown, the city of Greenbelt, where my center is, was hosting a business networking breakfast thing. And I went to the first one 2 months ago, and then it was good, and I thought, okay, I'll go to this one in March. And I was sitting on the edge. I got there kind of late. I was on the outskirts of the room, and in came a very charming guy who sat next to me. We're having a little sidebar. He asked me what I do, and I'm talking to childcare. And then somebody recognizes him in the room and invites him to speak. It was Peter Francho, the comptroller. He gave me this coin from his office that I now carry with me. And that was my first introduction to him.
Yeah, it is definitely good that somebody that wants to be governor has made childcare a central issue of his platform. And so we need to be thinking a couple years in the future, because thinking about the now is not working for us. We have got to be thinking about who's going to be coming in, who's going to be doing things for us in the future, and going to be helping us. So, but we are up on our hour. So, Rabbi Maiten, do you have any other remarks that you would like to make before we conclude?
We have so much power, so much energy, so much passion for what we do in our sector. And I just, I'm so glad to get to be in this field and learning from and with all of you. And I look forward to continuing on this journey with you. So I look forward to speaking again. Thank you for inviting me, Sean.
I'm so glad that you joined us, and I feel energized, which is kind of what I was hoping for. So, I mean, this definitely hit the notes that I was hoping to hit for myself. So, if nothing else, it's in a selfish way, I'm very happy. But you know, we are all just wrestling with so many things. And so I just want to tell childcare providers all over, we're struggling with the same issues. We are trying our best. And if you do your best and you think about what's best for your community, do not feel bad about the results. The results are not your fault. We are not in a winnable situation. We are in a very losable situation. Most of us are going to have struggles, and it's not a reflection on you. It doesn't mean that you didn't do your best. It doesn't mean, so if you continue to do your best and you fight and you try to look out for your kids and your staff, but also don't forget yourself. you matter. And if you destroy yourself, then who else is going to build that program or build that community? So you got to think about it at a lot of levels. It's really hard, and so let's just continue to help each other. How'd I do, Rabbi?
You did great, Sean. Thank you so much. This was
All right.
really lovely.
Well, thank you all, and it's good talking to you all.
Thank you all for being with
Talk
us.
soon. All right.